Hello and welcome back, or if you're new, my name is Ilana. This is a very different video than my typical videos here on YouTube, so there's a very good chance you've never seen a video from me, but if you have, hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about something that was a very big part of my life in my teenage years and early 20s, and that is working for Dutch Bros Coffee. So I'm going to share the good, the bad, and the sometimes culty experiences I had while working for Dutch Bros. I'm not claiming that everything I'm about to say is fact. This is all my own opinion, my own experience, and my own perspective working for Dutch Bros Coffee from 2012 to 2017. So let's get right into it. So first off, for those of you who don't know what Dutch Bros is, it's a coffee company that started in Grants Pass, Oregon back in 1992. It was started by Travis Boersma and Dane Boersma. They are two brothers, Dutch brothers, hence the name. But they had a dairy farm, ended up starting a push cart, coffee cart, making really awesome espresso-based drinks, providing their community with great customer service and just fun energy. And that's really what Dutch Bros has been about since then, I would say, is they're really friendly baristas, excellent energy and vibes when you go through, and espresso-based drinks along with iced teas, smoothies, energy drinks, things like that. It's a big deal in the Pacific Northwest where it originated, and the first at least couple decades they were solely in the Pacific Northwest or at least West Coast region of the United States. They have since moved into Texas, Oklahoma, a little more towards the east side of the country. So it's definitely expanded. Okay, so let's rewind to my very first experience with Dutch Bros Coffee. So I was I think sophomore in high school, and let me tell you, Dutch Bros was the cool place to go. And I think it had opened maybe a couple years before that in my area, in the Portland metro area. But I had never gone until I was probably about 15 years old, sophomore in high school. I honestly couldn't even tell you how many Dutch runs my friends and I would go on before school, after school. It was just a fun place to drive your car and go get a coffee or get a energy drink or whatever. So great place to go. People loved it. I quickly became obsessed and a Dutch regular where I would go basically every day, sometimes 2 times a day. And it got to the point where the baristas knew my name, knew my drink, had it ready for me by the time I pulled up, things that make you feel really special and a VIP experience. Dutch Bros definitely offered, and I know that's an experience that a lot of regulars can relate to at Dutch Bros, or probably other places too, but Dutch Bros in particular was really good about, making you feel really special. And if you were a regular customer, they knew your name, they knew a little bit about you and definitely what you drank and all of that. So it was just a special experience, and it did just feel good to have people that, knew you or kind of cared about you in the community, that you could just go and buy a coffee and have a great experience. So here's the thing, I really wanted to work for Dutch Bros. After having about a year or more of really good experiences, going and getting my coffee, just feeling so good when I would go there, I really wanted to work for this company. So I applied as either a junior or a senior sometime in the later part of high school and never heard anything back. So then I applied again right around the time I was graduating high school, so June of 2012. And this time I did have a little walking interview with the manager. He came out to my car when I was in line for a drink, which by the way, it's a drive-through coffee company. For anybody who isn't familiar with Dutch Bros, you drive through at most locations. So I was in my car, the manager came out and he's like, "Oh, I saw you applied," and kind of gave me an on-the-spot interview as I was walking, really casual. And this was on the day of my high school graduation. So I was getting my Ice Annihilator before going home and putting on my cap and gown and walking across the stage. So priorities. But I had my interview or little walking interview, and never ended up getting that position. So I actually applied for a hostess position at Buffalo Wild Wings, got that, and was like, okay, great. I, wasn't meant to be, moving on, and that's that. So a few months later, the manager, we'll call him Jay, said they were hiring and asked if I was still interested. And I was like, no, I already have, a job at Buffalo Wild Wings. And he's like, okay, well, I have an open position, if you're still interested. And I definitely was still interested. This was still a place I really wanted to work. As a just turned 18-year-old about to start college, this was a place I really wanted to work and loved. So I ended up interviewing again, an actual official interview. And this time I did get the job. Honestly, at this point, I was so thrilled to finally be working for Dutch Bros that they could have told me, you're not gonna get paid, you're just gonna like work here for free. And I would have probably been like, sure, no problem, I just am happy to be here. When I finally started, it was like a whole new world. From the moment I walked in, everyone was really friendly and just felt like a big family, honestly, and just like a cool kids club kind of. Like everyone there was under the age of 30. I think the franchise owners, they were a married couple, were like definitely no older than 35. I think they were early to mid 30s, and then everyone else was 30 and under. I just hit it off with everybody right away and really liked the environment, the people, and just felt like it was even better than being a customer, because now you're on the inside and a part of this really cool company. When it came to training, it was actually quite a lot to learn. There were a lot of recipes. I learned how to steam milk, how to pull shots, how to make all of the drinks on the menu, and even some on this secret menu. And along with all the learning of how to actually make the drinks, which was kind of a lot, there's a lot of recipes to learn, and I definitely used flashcards and things to help me learn everything. But aside from that, I do remember the franchise owner who trained me really talking a lot about the Dutch Creed and Dutch Bros philosophy when it comes to their customer service, and how, you know, they really wanted to go above and beyond for their customers and make them feel really good. And always, you know, as baristas, it was our job to create that really welcoming, positive environment for the customers. I would say that Dutch Bros definitely had a big work hard, play hard mentality. We definitely worked hard while at work, but there was a lot of the play hard element as well. I think within like a week or two of getting hired, I went on my first Dutch Bros outing with the stand, with the you know, with the franchise owners, the managers, and all the baristas. We went to a Timbers game, and this was the first of many, many Dutch Bros outings to come during my time there. But yeah, everyone got drunk and it was fun, but you know, I was 18, and I think that was conducive with college life, and even towards the end of high school, like having fun on the weekends, drinking with your friends. And I think at the time it was a perk for me, or I thought of it as something cool and fun. But as I look back now as a 30-year-old, I see that, you know, isn't really a normal part of work culture. Not that there shouldn't be fun outings and drinking sometimes, but I think, as I'll share more, this was not a sometimes kind of a thing. So this brings me to the overall alcohol consumption that was very normalized working for Dutch Bros, whether you were of age or not. I would say if you didn't drink, you were a little on the outs with the company. I think it was very encouraged. I wouldn't say like totally peer pressured, but it was like cool to be a part of these activities of drinking, everything like that. So yeah, there was drinking at Dutch Bros events, at work meetings, work lunches, grand opening parties for new locations where there was an open bar, sometimes even at work. And again, this is just my experience and what I saw going on around me. But that was definitely a huge part about working for Dutch Bros, was the partying aspect and the drinking. So before I go into more of the details about what it was like working for Dutch Bros and working inside the shop, I do want to highlight some of the positive initiatives that Dutch Bros has been a part of. And a big one for that is the fundraisers that they hold in their locations, and just the overall way that they give back to their communities. I think that's something I will always give them credit for. I remember doing fundraisers for Buck for Kids, Make-A-Wish, Drink One for Dane, which helps fundraise for ALS research and support. And they just do a lot of good things like that for their communities, for their local communities. And I definitely respect that about the company for sure. They've also created a positive environment for their customers. I think it goes a long way for someone to, you know, remember your name and genuinely ask you how you're doing. So I think people go to Dutch Bros not just for a cup of coffee, but also for the connection and just the way they leave that experience feeling. But here's the flip side to that. As an employee, from an employee standpoint, there is this pressure to always be positive. And I'm not just talking about just being friendly. I'm talking being positive, like no matter what, even if you're feeling crappy, even if you're tired or stressed, just always showing a positive, happy persona and attitude. It really was this unspoken and sometimes spoken pressure to be on all the time and just be upbeat and positive and like make everybody's day. And it made it really hard to express how you were actually feeling and to be okay with having emotions and feelings that weren't positive. And honestly, working long days on your feet the whole day, running outside even in 95, 100 degree weather or pouring rain to go get the next customer, it was just exhausting, especially with little breaks. And then on top of that, you are expected to never complain, always be happy. It definitely can take a toll on you, and I know it took a toll on myself and my coworkers as well at times. And being positive, by the way, didn't just mean being positive to the customers, it also meant being positive in the stand, inside the shop, you know, never complaining, never pushing back when management tells you to do something. And it kind of created a pretty toxic environment, I would say. And on top of all that, the difficulty in getting hired in the first place made you feel like, or I'll just speak for myself, made me feel like I was lucky to be there and that I shouldn't, you know, complain too much or push anything because I was just lucky to be hired in the first place. But there were times where I would push back on things that made me feel unsafe or that I just didn't agree with or felt were kind of unethical. And one of them was, you know, closing the shop by myself as an 18-year-old at night. That was scary, and I think people tried to downplay that, or my managers or the franchise owners were not really open to listening. They were just kind of like, you'll be fine. And to anybody who knows, you know, has been to a Dutch Bros location, a lot of them are in their own little tiny parking lot, and it's not well lit. You're not around a bunch of other things, and it is very vulnerable to be inside this well lit space by yourself alone at night with money in the cash registers and all of that. And I was a little nervous about that. So that was something I expressed feeling unsafe about. I wanted someone else to be there when I closed, and obviously, you know, that just kind of fell on deaf ears. So things like that were unfortunate, and again, it was that whole idea of like, well, I'm lucky to be here, so I'm just gonna do it anyway and not complain. Moving into the kind of culty part, aside from the fact that there was definitely like a Dutch lingo, and the way people spoke was all very similar, and things like bitchin', super rad, just like this type of verbiage, lingo. I don't know. It was definitely its own little language. Dutch Bros had its own language. The way everyone dressed was very similar. My stand personally wasn't the most diverse. I would say there was a little diversity, but not a lot of diversity. Very much younger people, I would say conventionally attractive people were hired, able-bodied people, mostly white in my experience at my location. So I think eventually I kind of did look around, like everyone kind of looks the same, talks the same, dresses the same. It's kind of culty, but maybe not the most culty thing ever, you know, I don't know. So there was that aspect, but then about a year after I got hired in the summer of 2013, I went down to Grants Pass, where the company originated, for a company event called Coachapalooza. And this was basically a mix between a big work training, a Tony Robbins self-help seminar, and a party. That's the best way I would describe it. And they invited hundreds of employees from across the company to come down for this, I think, 2 or 3 day event. And I went to, I believe, 3 of these events during my time there, but this first one in particular, I just remember this was the first time I ever got to meet or see Travis Boersma, the co-owner, co-founder, and CEO at the time. And he really was passionate when he spoke to us about the company and their mission and just, you know, stories. And overall, I was like very inspired. And mind you, I really wanted to work for this company for a long time before I got hired. And so to be able to hear the co-founder, you know, sound so passionate about it, just, it did really, you know, feel inspiring. And I definitely, I would say that moment extra was drinking the Kool-Aid. But I do remember even then there being a little bit of red flag situations, and hearing Travis have some like religious rhetoric was a little bit of a red flag for me. And, you know, the term servant leadership, just things that I had not been used to hearing. And, you know, I'm working for a coffee company, so it was just a little bit of a interesting, like, I think it just, especially I was at this point 19 years old, I was just still so young and didn't really know like what potentially is not the norm in a workplace. But Travis was really passionate, and he just really, encouraged everyone to set goals, read self-help and leadership books, and just be really positive people and give customers the best experience ever and things like that. And they did really encourage people to consider franchising one day. I think that was never my goal because I was in college. This for me was a college job. Like while I'm in school, I also work at Dutch Bros. But for a lot of people there, they were working towards becoming franchise owners one day, or moving up, being a manager, and eventually regional manager, or owning their own locations. So that was also a big part of what he talked about. Like you need, I think at the time it was like $50,000. You have to work for the company for a certain amount of time. There was some criteria around how you could own your own location someday. So that was something that people really wanted, and that created its own dynamics in the stands. But lucky for me, I was more just like wanting to work hard, make good tips, and enjoy what I was doing while in college. But being at Coachapalooza, I think that's when groupthink really started to kick in. I don't know if you know what groupthink is, but it definitely happened at Dutch Bros, where you just kind of feel like you can't even allow yourself to think certain things that are against what everyone else is saying and doing, because it's like you're looking around and no one else is seeming concerned, and so you're kind of like, well, maybe it's just me, and I just don't know what things are like yet, or you just kind of think about it like maybe I'm the one that needs to like work on my mindset. Okay, there was this pressure to conform to the company mentality that we were all part of something bigger, and it was tempting to get caught up in that, especially when you're surrounded by people who genuinely believe in it. But then as time passed, it really did start to feel like this was more about the company's vision than our own personal well-being. And honestly, positivity is great, but when it starts to feel more like a cult mentality than a company, that's when things start to get really uncomfortable. And this has taken me a long time to process, because I think that there are a lot of fun things about working for a company like Dutch Bros Coffee, and I will never regret working there. I met so many great people there, and I did learn some great customer service skills and things like that. But honestly, like the way I kind of try to think about it now is, imagine you're working at Taco Bell, and the owner at Taco Bell preaches how big of an impact you have on the communities, how you're changing the world, how it's so important to remember every customer's name, their order, and if you ask them on Friday what they're doing over the weekend, you better remember on Monday what they said they were gonna do and ask them about it, all while working for minimum wage at a fast food restaurant. Dutch Bros ultimately is no different, but they have convinced their employees that they're part of something better. And this is all, again, my experience, my opinion, and I might seem negative, especially if you do work for Dutch Bros. I look like the biggest hater ever, but I guess my point is, at the end of the day, it's a coffee company and it's a job, and this pressure to always be changing the world and so positive and uplifting is exhausting, and it does give the customers a great experience. It does keep them coming back. But what is the cost for the baristas at Dutch Bros? And I think it's unhealthy to push those negative thoughts, feelings, bad days, low moments aside, just to always have a smile plastered on your face, and being so uplifting when maybe you aren't feeling like that. So I ended up leaving Dutch Bros in January of 2017 when I accepted a role at a PR firm, I think like 6 or 7 months after I graduated from college. So my time at Dutch Bros did come to an end. At the end of the day, Dutch Bros is a business, and every business has its ups and downs. My experience might not be the same as others, but it definitely was not all bad. I had a lot of really great experiences there, met a lot of great people, and there is a lot to be said on Dutch Bros' impact on their communities and on their customers. So for that, I do think they do a great job. As with any company, when the smoke and mirrors clear, you do kind of need to ask yourself, is this a place I really want to be? And is this a place or a mission I really want to be a part of? And so yeah, that's my story. That's my experience working for Dutch Bros Coffee. If you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. If you've ever worked for Dutch Bros, I would love to hear your experience down in the comments as well. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy this video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, or thumbs down if you hated it, and subscribe if you're not already. This is definitely not my typical content, but I think I will sprinkle some of these kind of videos in. I do have some other stories and things to share that I would love to share, because I think sharing stories is important, consumer awareness is important, and just, I don't know, sharing our own experiences is important. So that is why I wanted to finally make this video after at least a couple years of thinking about it. Finally decided to sit down and film it. So hopefully you guys liked it. I hope you have a very good rest of your day, and I'll see you in my next video.